Today we're going to be creating some watercolor hearts, so we need to start with our watercolor palette here, and there's lots of different colors to choose from. I have a flat brush and a small round brush that I'm going to be using, and I have 2 cups of water. So I have a clear cup of water that's always the cup that we clean our brushes in, and then we have a second cup of water that's in a colored cup, and this is the one we always keep clean, so we never double dip a dirty brush in the cup that has the color in it, because then we end up with really muddy watercolors. So next you also need your palette, and that's where you're going to be mixing all of your colors, is on the separate palette. So next I'm taking my clean water in the colored cup, and I'm going to take some of that water on my brush and I'm dipping it into the color that I want to use for my watercolor, and I'm just painting it very lightly. So I'm not pressing hard into that watercolor, I'm just tapping it very lightly to dissolve some of the watercolor and put it onto my paintbrush. So just be very gentle and light. So you want to use enough water on your watercolor that you can get a nice even coat of paint, but if it's too wet you can take a paper towel and take out some of that water. And the first technique is a wash. So you're just putting the paint evenly across your paper, and that's when it's nice and even, that's called a wash. Next I'm going to clean my brush off in the clear cup, and I'm going to put a little bit more paint on my brush, and I'm going to make it dark at the top, and then as I move down it's going to be a little lighter to create an ombre. So I just clean off my brush with water and see how the color starts to look lighter as it goes from top to bottom. That's a graded wash. Next I'm doing a glaze. So again I'm putting a nice even coat, and then I'm going to let this dry. Later I'm going to come back and add more color on top, but let's let it dry first. So for a wet and wet, I'm going to clean my brush in my clear water cup and then dry off my brush to make sure it looks perfectly clean. Now I'm taking my colored water cup, that's my perfectly clean water, now no double dipping in there, and now I am painting onto my paper, and it doesn't look like anything yet because it's just clear water, but you'll notice once you then take your color and while your paper's still wet, if you put a few drops, see how it starts to spread on its own? So this is a really cool technique. It's called wet and wet, because you put wet paint onto a wet paper, it starts to spread on its own. But it will only spread in the areas where you painted it with that clear, clean water first. So you can even let multiple colors blend together with this technique. So I can just add a second color here if I want to. You can put as many colors as you want using this technique, and you'll see that it sort of just spreads on its own. And you can add even in some more water, and that might help the colors spread some more. They may even start to mix and create kind of a purple. So you can play around with these techniques and have fun. Now for the glaze, I'm going to come back and I'm going to add a second wash on top with another color. So I'm just going right over it, and you notice the more brush strokes I have, the more the blue and the red sort of blend together. So I'm actually wetting the paper underneath, and it creates a little bit of purple. But if you don't want that, just use less water and fewer brush strokes, and then you can have just red on top of your blue. So now I'm going to show you an example. So I'm going to mix some color here, and I use my palette, and I'm just going to use sort of a green on one side, and I'm just using a glaze. Then I'm going to do the same sort of glaze technique on the right. Now I'm painting on clean water to do now a wet on wet, and see how these colors just sort of spread on their own. And I can go in and add more color if I want. I can start moving that color around to get it exactly where I want it on my paper. Now for the gem effect, I'm going to start painting each of these different sections with different colors. So you'll notice in my palette I mixed lots of different shades of pink and red. So on the top left it looks more purple, and then I have some that are more yellow pink, so kind of a corally pink. Some have white mixed in to be lighter. So I'm just using the different techniques. Sometimes it's a glaze, sometimes it's a wet on wet, like I did in that big center area, and I'm just painting in so that they're different colors. Now if you noticed, some of the colors might bleed into each other, especially if you did a wet on wet. But you can just dry your brush off and actually take paint away. So if you don't like where you painted something, clean off your brush and just paint over it, and you'll see it'll pick up the paint and take it away. So I'm putting my final touches on the gem heart, and then I can see the other heart that I colored as well. Have fun!